Hey guys, welcome back. So for this video, I thought we'd do something a little bit more fun. Unlike all the initialization of the character and the other ones, we'll set up one of his abilities. So we'll go over how to do his teleportation ability. So we'll set up how to get this icon, or this target reticle on screen. We'll set up the particle systems, and we'll get him moving back and forth. We won't set up the shadow power cost this time. We will add that on later on when we iterate further. But for now, let's just get the base functionality of him jumping around the map like this, because it's pretty fun to play with actually. So without further ado, let's jump over to our project. The only thing I've done so far in this other project, not the library, is I've gone to the free section of the marketplace. In the permanently free collection, on the second page, is this FX variety pack, and that has the particle systems that we're going to be using. So it is free, so if you want to install that real quick, we will jump into it. So here I am in our project, and the first thing I want to do in ours is I want to go into the project settings, which if you don't have that window, you can go to edit project settings, and down in the inputs we want to add two. One called teleport mode that'll let us shift in and out of being able to teleport. I'm going to make that left shift on mine. What happened? Oh. Then I'll add one more. This one I'm going to call primary cast, because we're going to use this same button for spells later on, and it's just easier to do it that way. So I'm going to set this as the left mouse button. So with that done, we'll jump back out here, right click a player and open them up. Then we'll find some empty room, right click, and we'll call that teleport mode action event that we just created. So after that, we will create a branch with a B left click, because we want to find out if the character is aiming. Because if they are, you don't want them to be able to jump around the map. You want to be able to focus one or the other. So if they are not aiming, then we want to create a boolean called teleporting question mark. We'll B left click for another branch, hook that to the condition, and if they are not teleporting, we want to set teleporting true. If they are, we want to set it back false, because unlike the first one, this one's going to be toggleable. So we'll come back to this in just a second. Out in the content browser, go into our blueprints folder, right click, create a new folder called spells. I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to create a blueprint class of an actor called target point underscore BP, and this is what we'll use to do the teleporting, where we'll cast when we're summoning minions later on, all that jazz. So I'm going to open that up and add a cone. I'm going to make that a quarter of its size on the scale, drag it up a little bit, and flip it over. So that looks pretty good right there. And with that done, we'll drag it over there. Then we want to right click and create a material called target point underscore mat. Double click and open that up. And then you want to hold 3 on the keyboard and left click to get this color selector. M left click for a multiply node and hook that directly to the emissive color. I'm going to open that up. I'm going to make mine kind of a reddish. And then on the multiply, I'm going to set that to 50 just so it's got this nice glow to it. Apply that. Go back to your target point. Oh, actually out to the browser just to make sure that's selected. And then back in your target point, we'll apply that to the cone. So I'm going to save real quick, just because this button's super important. It is your friend. It will take care of you. So what we want to do is go back into the player blueprint, and if we're teleporting, then we want to set global time dilation to about quarter speed. So I'm going to set it to 0.25. And then I'm going to I'm going to add a timeline called Telecam Shift. I'm going to drag it down out of the way, and I'm going to create a custom event called Telecam. And I'm going to call it right here at the end. So we'll drag this down and hook it to play. Double click and open that up. Change the length to about 0.5. Add a float track called Shift. Right click on the graph to add a key. Set the time to 0, value 0. Right click and add one more that you want the time to be at 0.5 and the value of 1. I'm going to box select both of those. And then I'm going to right click and set the key interpolation to auto. That way it smooths out the transition between those two values. So back in the event graph, we want to go over and grab where we set up our camera shifting. Oh, that one's called shift 2, but it's alright, it'll be alright. We're going to grab all this, Control C, drag it over, and Control V to paste it, because we want to update where our camera's at, so that we get a better view of where we're going to teleport to. I want it to be a little bit further than the other one was, so instead of going to 375, because remember A is where we're at, B is where we're going. So I'm going to set B to about 525. And I think 85 would be good on the Y, but I'm going to set the Z to about 40. That way it gets up a little bit higher, than gives the player a better view. Oh, one more important thing. Inside the timeline, right here at the end is an ignore time dilation checkbox. You want to make sure that's clicked, otherwise this thing will just run at like a quarter of the speed you set it to. This way it ignores all that, runs full speed every time. So we'll create one more custom event called Telecam Unshift. Drag it over and we'll hook that to reverse. That way we can call it and get back to where we were. So I'm going to copy that and paste it up top. You can also select something and Control W and it'll give you an instant copy. I've just gotten so used to the Control C, Control V. I think I tell you all this every single time I do it. But so we'll call that Telecam Unshift node right here, so that we go back to our regular play camera. And then on our going into teleporting mode, we're going to create one more custom event called Teleport Trace Start. So we'll call that one. And what we want to do here is we want to drag it over, get a little bit more room, and we'll drag off and do a line trace by channel. We want to make sure that's visibility, and we want to draw it from our camera out a certain distance. So we'll drag out the camera, get its world location, drag out from the camera again and get its forward vector so that we're always drawing it in front of the camera. From the world location, we'll drag out and do a vector plus vector. From the forward vector, we'll drag out and do a vector plus times float. And this will be the distance in units that it shoots forward. So I'm going to set this to something pretty high, like 3,500 sounds good. I'll hook this to the addition slot and hook this to the end and the world location to the start. Just so you can see what we're talking about, I'm going to do a draw debug for duration, just so I can go in and show you. So, see, the camera fires a line. So on the out hit, we want to break the hit result. We're going to B left click for another branch, hook that to this red return node. This is tells you if there was a hit or if there was not. So if there was, then we want to spawn actor from class, and we want to spawn that target point we just set up a second ago. And we want to spawn it at the hit location. But now if there's not a hit, like if you don't hit anything at all, we still want to spawn this, it's just at a different point. So we'll copy that, hook it to the false, and then we want to get the trace end. So if it doesn't hit anything at all, it'll spawn just directly at the end of the line. Then we want to promote this to a variable called target point. I'm going to copy that and paste it up here so that no matter what, we create that variable. And then we want to create another custom event called TP trace update. And then we'll just call that one. We can hook both of these directly to it. It's going to kind of tidy things up a little bit real quick. Drag this over here. Just get a little bit more room. So on the TP trace update, what we want to do is we want to basically select all of this because we're going to need it again. So you want to get the camera, all the maths, the line trace, the branch, and the hit result. You don't want anything past the hit result. So none of this. So I'm going to copy that and paste it down here because we're going to continue firing off this line trace so that we can update that target point's location. So if there is a hit result, then we want to set an actor's location. And the actor we want to update the location of is the target point. So we'll hook this to true, and we'll hook the location into its new location. So at the end of that, we want to do a branch. No. We'll do a retriggerable delay first. I'm going to set it to really low, 0.001. You could use the event tick, but I don't really like using that for anything at all if I can avoid it. But this works. This will be really good. So we want to do a branch after the retriggerable delay and find out if our character is still trying to teleport. And if he is, then we want to call this update again and let it feed back through so that we continuously update where that point is at. So I'm going to call that on the true, and if they are not trying to teleport anymore, then we want to nullify the target point. So that should be everything we need to do for that. One more thing we do want to do. The last time I tried to set this up, this is my third time trying to record this thing because I kept making stupid mistakes. But in the target point blueprint, you want to highlight the cone, go down to its collision settings, and for the collision presets, just set no collision. Otherwise, this will register on your line traces and it'll throw off where you're trying to teleport to. So with that done, let's go back in here. And now you can see oh, I forgot to turn that debug off. But that looks kind of cool. Fascinating. Anyway, that is working. So let's go back in here and turn that off before I forget, because I have like a Dory type memory. Does not serve me well. So with all that done, now we want to set up, let's actually set up the shut off mode. So when you unshift, you want to find out if you've got a target point. So we'll drag out that, get it, right click it, and convert it to a validated get. This just checks to see if it's valid, and if it is, then it'll do something. If it's not, it'll do something else, or nothing at all, which is what we're going to make it do. So if it is valid, then we want to destroy it with a vengeance. Take it out. Get it out of our way. Alright, that should be everything we need to do for that. Now we'll right click somewhere else and call that primary cast. Probably helps to select the right node. So primary cast one more time. Action event. And when pressed, you want to do a branch and find out if they are teleporting. Because you don't want them trying to teleport if they're not, you know, teleporting. Makes sense, right? So if they are, then we want to drag out our target point, get it, and we want to get the actor's location. And I'm going to drag off and promote this to a variable called TP target. I'm going to drag this part above this because this will be used for spells later on. This is going to be how we cast our range magic later. So, but we'll go up here. Actually, you know what? Let's just do a custom event. It'll make it neater. So we'll add a custom event called teleporting. And then we'll just call it off that. That way we can set a little bit more room, make it a little bit nicer, make it look pretty. So with that, I'm going to box select and just move it up. You can box select things or just click one node, and if you use the arrow keys, it'll move it around. So up here, if we are teleporting, I want to set the target point's location to that. Going to want to add a timeline again called teleport. And hook that to play from start. Open that up. I'm going to set this to about 0.5. Do the same thing we did last time. I'm going to just call it speed. You can call it whatever you want on that one. I'm going to add the keys just like last time. So right click, add key. Time 0 is value 0 on the first. Time 0.5, value 1 on the second. And I'm going to leave this one just linear. I'm not going to do the interpolation. If you don't like the way it looks when you come back, then you can go in and change that. But for me, this works pretty well. So then we want to drag this over just a little bit. Come down to our teleport mode logic. Do one more custom event. I know we're doing a lot of these, but let's call it break. Actually, call it break teleport so we don't get it confused later on for something else. And we will just hook that directly to our teleporting branch, because when we have the character, when we have the spot and we're trying to teleport to it, we want to tell them that we're not teleporting so that it goes back to full speed, unshifts the camera, and destroys the actor. Resumes gameplay from there. So we'll go up here. We'll call that break teleport function before the timeline. Play from start. And then what we want to update on this is our character's location. So we'll right click, set actor helps if I spell it right. Set actor location. So we'll hook that to the update. The target we can leave as self, and we want to drag off the new location and type lerp, because we're going to lerp the vectors. So we want to lerp between our actor's current location. So we'll get the actor location, and then we want to lerp it between the teleport target at this rate of speed. So with that done, should be just about it. Let's test that out so far. Oh, right, that's right. Alright, so in the teleport logic, we want to drag where we set the actor's location for our teleport target, drag off that and do a vector plus vector and add 90 to it. Because the way we set up our character, if we teleport just directly where it's at, he'll end up in the ground like he just did. So we'll test that one more time. So now he can look around, find his target. Oh, and if it doesn't, okay. So back in our line trace update, if we don't have a hit, the trace update, if we don't have a hit, we still want it to call this function until we're not teleporting anymore. So if we don't have a hit, we'll just hook it directly to the retriggerable delay. We won't update the location, we'll bypass that and go straight back so we can feed back through. So that if something like that happens, like it's not updating, but I can go back to it. So now if I left click, then he moves to the location. But we also want it to do that. We want him to face the direction he's moving to and make those emitters happen. So we'll go back into the player blueprint, go to the viewport, highlight the mesh, and we'll add a component of a particle system. Not the Niagara, but just the regular particle system. So I'm going to compile. I'm going to go into my content browser to the FX variety pack. And the first one I want to grab is this shockwave. So back in the player, and we'll hook that there. We'll drag it up. I think about there looked good. The right way? Yeah, that's the right way. Rotate it 90, and then set it in the middle of our character. We'll scroll down, find the auto activate under activation, and disable that, because you don't want it to happen until you're teleporting. So then we'll right click and duplicate that. Then we'll scroll back up, and instead of having this one, we want the Thunderball. And I'll plug that in right there. Compile that, and then we can go back into our teleport event right here. We'll drag this back before the timeline, drag out our mesh, because we want to set its visibility to nothing. That way it goes invisible during the shift. Then we want to drag out particle system 1, drag off it, and type in, not that, helps if I learn to spell. I will pick up a book at some point. And we want to type activate. And you want to check this box so that if it is firing and you try to fire it again, it'll refire just like it's starting for the first time. Drag out the second particle system and hook that to the target also. That way it activates them both at the same time. And we're going to need just a little bit more room just to make it to where he faces the right area. So what we want to do is we want to set the actor rotation after he's invisible. We'll hook that up. We're going to drag off the new rotation. We'll break the Nope. We're going to make rotator? Yeah, make rotator. Because we only want to affect his Z-axis. We don't want to affect all the other ones because you'll have him pitch forward or sideways and it'll just look funky. So we want to right click and find, look at rotation, and we'll drag off the return value for that and break the rotate now into axes. Drag off, break rotator, and hook the Z up. So the start, we want to get our actors, not actors, get the actor location and hook that to the start. And then for what we want to be looking at is our teleport target hooked to the target. And then when he teleports, he'll shift that way. Then we'll hook that right back up to the play from start, compile that, and let's test it out. So I can run, jump, he slows down. Oh. Okay, so after the timeline, once it's finished, then you want to drag all this, copy it, paste it over here, hook the finished to the set visibility, because you want to retoggle his visibility. And instead of activating, we want to deactivate these. Otherwise, he's just a purple swirly blob for the rest of his undead life. The rest of his undeath. Alright, now let's test it out. So, jump up. Boom. Hey, there he goes. And you can teleport all around the map to your heart's delight. So that pretty much covers it for this episode, I believe. Let me just double check everything, make sure I'm not missing nothing. So we're setting our character into teleport mode. Checking to see if he's aiming first. Checking to see if they're teleporting. Slowing down time. Shifting our camera and creating our target. Alright, doing our teleport trace start. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. We'll go through and clean everything up real quick. So I'll box select that, and you can hit C on the keyboard to create a comment box. Teleport function start. I'll box select that. TP cam. Clean all this up. TP trace / update. And then we'll box select this and just call this spells for now, because we're going to need to come back to it and add spell functionality to it. Alright, then we'll just tidy this up a little bit, box select that, and this is our teleport logic. Alright, and that pretty much cleans up all this, so that in the next episode we can start getting our minions on board, whatever. We can start summoning them and then casting them around. So thanks for stopping by and checking it out, and we'll see you all in the next one.